And so I'll be talking to you on web accessibility, building with inclusion. So we've had several talks on how to deploy web apps on DigitalOcean and the others. So how do you build apps that are inclusive, not just for people that are not disabled or people that are not visually impaired? So a few minutes of your time will be on this. My name is Sarah, Omoike Sarah Ego. I'm a software developer at DNA4Wheels.ng. I'm also a co-founder of UI UX School and also Lagos WIMLDS. That's Women in Machine Learning and Data Science. So I'm more of a geeky. So we'll be talking about an overview on web accessibility. I'm very sure most of us have heard about web accessibility. It's been one of the concentrations that all recently talked about topics in tech in recent times. I'll give an overview about it and also data on people that are disabled, world populations on data that on people that are disabled, and also we'll look through elements on accessibility features. Before I talk about what web accessibility is in general, while I was researching on this, I got information from WHO. About 15% of the world populations are disabled. And that's one of the reasons why we all should build apps with inclusiveness. And then looking at the Nigerian population, a very large percentage also, not so large, because the people that are able are more than people that are disabled. So we should also consider this percentage of people when we are building applications, and how do we do that? First, let's understand what web accessibility is. It's basically building for people that are disabled, not necessarily people that don't have hands or don't have legs, or people that cannot walk, or people that are using wheelchair. Sorry to say, some of us could be visually impaired here, but we won't know. So last week on Twitter, I saw a very funny post. So someone just tweeted, I don't feel too good. I think I'm sick. And then someone responded, okay, this is the right time for you to use those applications that you've been building. Let's test it with your illness to see if you can use it. So that's like a use case of someone using an application that he or she has built when maybe there's an eye, the eye doesn't function properly, or there's a hearing defect. So web accessibility is basically building for everybody inclusively. Disabled, non-disabled, ease of use on using our web apps, and using inclusion in mind while building applications. A term that is also in line with web accessibility, that denotes web accessibility, is A11I. Actually, I actually don't know the meaning of this until I was researching on this topic and I got to know about it. So A11I is actually the 11 letters in accessibility. If you look at the spelling of accessibility, there are actually 13. So the 11 letters between A and Y, that denotes accessibility. So the common questions we always ask is, how do people who cannot move their arms use our website? What about people who cannot see well at all? Or people who have difficulty hearing or understanding, or other forms of disabilities? So we're looking at different perceptions. There's hearing, there's feeling, there is seeing, that's sight. Perception for hearing, feeling. I'll be sharing some tools they use in actually getting access to our site. For perception for hearing, feeling, and seeing, these tools are screen reader, voice browser. For distinguishing and understanding, that is, let's say you have a website, a landing page, or some other pages in your website, and they want to understand what contents are on these. These are the tools they use on it. For input, typing, writing, clicking, they use accelerators, eye tracking, keyboard customization, keyboard and mouse filters, and a whole lot of other things. So how do we build inclusively? How do we as developers and designers build inclusively? First off, there there are different concerns that we need to put in when we are building our web applications. Although we might be doing these things unconsciously, but ideally, we're actually considering those that are disabled or people that are visually impaired or having a hearing defect to use our applications. One is consistency and predictability. If you have links, buttons, controls, they should all be consistent. Descriptive titles, headings, and labels. So in your title tag, when you're building a website, you have the H1 to H6 tag. I think I'm guilty of this also. If I'm building a website or I'm building a web app, sometimes I just use a div, and then I put font size 18px. That's not a good thing to do. That's best practice. For you to build with inclusion, always use your H1 to H6 for accessibility, and it's also good for SEO optimization also. So we also have helpful error and success message. Some sites are really very shitty at this. Sometimes I think there's an app I used and I got lost. Basically, from filling a form, I didn't actually understand what was going on, if not for the fact that I'm a developer myself. So it's ideal and best for us to ensure that when we are throwing error message on our form inputs, always be descriptive on the error. Visual orientation clues, background colors to indicate different parts of the content. So this is an example of a good or bad form validation, or throwing error to your user if probably they are filling a particular input field and what they are putting is not correct. So dialogues and other messages such as submitting forms, these are very key areas for us to consider when building web apps. Other considerations are, most of us use CMS, right? How many of us use CMS here? Or only a few hands. So when choosing CMS, the type of CMS you want to use, like Drupal or WordPress, or a whole lot of them, when you are choosing your theme, always ensure that you choose the ones that are, they build the templates for accessibility, with accessibility concerns in them. So these are one of the key areas you should look at when choosing CMS. I said this before, using headings correctly to organize the structure of your content, H1 to H6 is very key. Including proper alt text. So you're describing an image, you have an image on the website. Some of us will just put IMG tag, SRC, and then you put your image link. You don't add your alternative text. Not just for accessibility concerns, should in case the image doesn't load due to poor internet connectivity, it just tells the user that this is an image, or whatever you describe your alternative text as. And then your links, using the A tag, always underline your links. It's very key for accessibility concerns. Then considering color, use colors that maybe, so one of the things that we don't do building applications, I don't know most of us if we do usability tests when building apps. Now you go to a user to test your applications to use it. We always go to people that are okay, 100% okay. So how about people that are visually impaired? How about people that they can't hear properly, or other forms of disabilities? It's always very key for us to test with other sets of forms of users. This way we build inclusively. And I talked about designing forms with accessibility concerns. Even if it's not form for login or password change, or login or password, whatever concerns you are building the forms for, build with accessibility in mind. So after you've done all these considerations, looking at your forms, there are a whole lot of maybe when I share my slides, I'll put materials on where you can look at other considerations when building with inclusion. After you've done all these considerations on your web apps, how do you now know that, okay, this app I built someone that is visually impaired or is disabled can use it. There are lots of tools online that you can use to check, and these are some of them you can use to check for different features on your app. Thank you. Any questions?